All right, settle in. Ever caught your dog staring at you during a stressful Zoom meeting, and you just know they know? Maybe you wondered if that sweet summer corn on the cob is actually, doing you any favors. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into the Consumers 360 News Commentary, Consumer Trends and News Due 18-Foot 2025 Report. It's this great collection from consumers.app, bowling news from all over. Our job, cut through the noise, get you the facts, and maybe find some surprising connections.
Exactly. And it's fascinating how these topics that seem so separate, like diet, gut health, even pet anxiety, actually tie together. They all reflect how we live, how we consume. We've sifted through the consumer's research to pull out the really key insights for you.
Okay, let's jump right in. First headline, a summer classic. Is corn actually good for you? Find out before biting in this summer. That's from USA Today via MSN.com. So, corn? It's sweet, it's everywhere in summer, but is it just like empty calories?
Not at all, actually. Our deep dive into the research shows corn is quite the nutritional package. We're talking fiber, good amounts of vitamins B and C, magnesium, but also, crucially, these antioxidants called lutein and zeaxanthin.
Lutein and zeaxanthin. What do they do?
Think of them as protectors for your eyes. The research strongly links them to promoting eye health, potentially warding off age-related issues. Plus, the fiber is great for digestion, and the vitamins support your immune system, so definitely not empty.
Okay, interesting. But you mentioned something else before, nixtamalization. That sounds complicated. Most of us just boil corn, right?
Right, we boil or grill it. But nixtamalization is this traditional process, often involving soaking corn in an alkaline solution like lime water. And it's a game changer, nutritionally speaking.
How so? What does it change?
Well, get this. It dramatically boosts the availability of niacin, that's vitamin B3, and an amino acid called tryptophan. Making these more available helps prevent conditions like pellagra, which used to be a major issue in corn-reliant diets. Plus, it improves the flavor and texture, and this is amazing. It can reduce harmful fungal toxins, mycotoxins, sometimes by almost 100%.
Wow, up to 100%. That's huge. It really makes you think about how we process food now.
It really does. We might be missing out on some serious benefits by simplifying things too much.
So, okay, putting this together, if someone's looking at corn as, say, a source of carbohydrates or for those longer-term health benefits, how does it stack up?
It's a solid, complex carb, providing sustained energy, much like, say, brown rice or quinoa. And those antioxidants, the lutein and zeaxanthin, they fight oxidative stress throughout the body, not just in the eyes. That potentially lowers the risk for various chronic diseases over time. The research also touches on some newer ideas, like specific starch esters derived from corn being used in food preservation, potentially acting as prebiotics for gut health. But more research is definitely needed there.
Okay, so for you listening at home, how can we practically use this? Like, get more of this good stuff into our meals?
Oh, it's super versatile. Canned, frozen, fresh on the cob, it all works. Toss it into salads for crunch and color, add it to soups, stews, chilies. And don't forget popcorn. Air-popped popcorn without tons of butter and salt is actually a decent whole grain snack.
Air-popped popcorn noted. Okay, moving on. Next headline tackles something often debated. Is a hypocaloric diet safe and effective for long-term health? This one's from newsmedical.net. Hypocaloric. That basically means fewer calories, right? But Is it just about eating less?
Essentially, yes. It's reducing calorie intake below what you burn. But the key distinction the research makes is doing this without causing malnutrition. It forces the body to tap into stored fat for energy, which is why it works for weight loss. That's the basic mechanism.
Right. But the headline asks about long-term health. So beyond weight loss, what are the potential benefits and what are the risks we need to watch out for?
The potential long-term benefits are pretty significant. We're talking improved cardiovascular health markers, better blood sugar control, potentially reducing the risk of type 2 diabetes and other metabolic diseases. Some studies even suggest sustained, well-managed calorie restriction might positively impact aging processes and longevity by reducing oxidative stress and improving metabolic function.
Okay, that sounds promising, but what's the catch? The risks?
The biggest risk is nutritional deficiency. If you just cut calories without careful planning, you can easily miss out on essential vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, even protein. That's why a well-balanced hypocaloric diet is crucial. It needs to be nutrient-dense. Muscle loss can also be a concern if protein intake isn't adequate.
So balance is everything. And The research also mentioned something about sustainability. How does that connect?
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. When you look at how people often achieve lower calories, especially focusing on protein, the research notes a frequent reliance on animal proteins. And many of those sources aren't particularly sustainable from an environmental perspective. So there's a challenge there, aligning personal health goals with planetary health. It points towards needing more plant-based protein sources within these kinds of diets if sustainability is also a goal.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears to something really intricate. Headline: Genes may determine how early life exposures shape the gut microbiome. Also from newsmedical.net via msn.com. Gut microbiome. That's all the bacteria in our gut.
Mhm.
And this is saying our genes influence how things like diet or antibiotics affect it early on.
Precisely. The research highlights that what happens in early life, nutrition, exposure to antibiotics, maybe even mode of birth, significantly shapes this complex community of microbes in our gut. And this community is vital. It trains our immune system, influences metabolism, even helps protect us from pathogens. But here's the twist. Our genetics also play a big role. Your genes can influence which microbes thrive and how they interact with your diet or environment. It's nature and nurture working together.
Wow. And you mentioned the immune system and metabolism, but isn't there also a connection to the brain, the gut-brain axis?
Absolutely. That's a huge area of research right now. The gut and brain are in constant communication. Studies, including some really interesting ones from 2020 mentioned in the research, are linking the development of the gut microbiome in preterm infants to their later neurobehavioral outcomes. Things like early life stress can impact this axis, potentially imprinting the microbiome in ways that affect brain development.
That's incredible. So could we potentially predict developmental outcomes based on an infant's gut microbes?
The research suggests it might be possible. They've identified certain microbial signatures or markers in early life that seem to correlate with later neurobehavioral profiles. It really underscores how critical that early window is for establishing a healthy microbiome.
So thinking practically, things like antibiotic use, which is common, how does that play into this?
Yeah.
Especially with conditions like eczema or atopic dermatitis.
Right. Antibiotics, while crucial sometimes, can definitely disrupt the developing microbiome. The research connects environmental factors like diet and antibiotic exposure to changes in the gut microbes that can, in turn, influence immune function and potentially increase the risk for conditions like atopic dermatitis.
Okay, so what can parents or caregivers do to support a healthy gut environment for infants?
Well, the research points to a few key things. Promoting breastfeeding is a big one, as breast milk contains beneficial compounds for the baby's gut. Using antibiotics judiciously, only when truly necessary, and ensuring a balanced diet, both for the mother during pregnancy and lactation and for the child as they grow, focusing on fiber-rich foods, prebiotics, and potentially probiotics.
It feels like we're just scratching the surface of understanding this inner world.
We really are. Projects like the Human Microbiome Project have been fundamental in mapping out the diversity and functions of these microbes, but we're moving towards an era where we might be able to use this knowledge for really targeted interventions to promote health, maybe even personalized microbiome therapies. It's exciting stuff.
Definitely. Okay, let's bring it back to something many of us experience daily, or at least witness. Headline: In stressful times, our anxiety can rub off on pets. Causes and cures for pet anxiety from the Morning Sun. I think every pet owner suspects this sometimes. Does the research actually back this up?
It absolutely does. The consumer's research confirms pets experience anxiety from various triggers: separation, loud noises like fireworks, changes in routine or environment. This anxiety isn't just behavioral, like barking or hiding. It affects their physiology, think stress hormones, even immune function. Separation anxiety in dogs is a classic, well-studied example.
Okay, so they have their own triggers. But the headline says our anxiety rubs off on them. How strong is that link?
It seems pretty significant. The research talks about emotional contagion. Basically, our stress and anxiety levels can directly impact our pets. If we're constantly tense or anxious, our pets pick up on it, which can increase their own stress levels and potentially lead to behavioral or health problems for them too. Our emotional state matters to them.
That really makes you think about managing your own stress for your pet's sake too. So if a pet is anxious, what works? And is technology playing any role here?
Treatment often involves behavior modification techniques like systematic desensitization, gradually getting them used to the trigger in a safe way. Sometimes medication is needed, prescribed by a vet. The crucial thing is understanding the cause and addressing that, rather than punishing the anxious behavior, which usually backfires. And yes, tech is emerging. Petco, for instance, developed something called a media insights engine. It uses computer vision AI, basically to analyze videos of pets, looking for subtle signs of health issues, including anxiety. It could help vets diagnose things faster.
Analyzing pet videos with AI, that's pretty cool. And the research branched out a bit too, didn't it? Mentioning language and the pandemic.
Yeah, connecting it to the bigger picture. There are tools being developed, like one called Worry Words, that track how often anxiety-related words are used, which could help researchers understand anxiety trends. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic was a major event that caused a huge spike in human anxiety, and shelters and vets definitely reported seeing the knock-on effects in pets during that time. It really highlighted that connection.
It's also interconnected. Okay, final headline. Vegans more in line with nutritional recommendations, says study from Plant-Based News. This is always a hot topic. What did the research find?
The deep dive showed that, on average, vegan diets tend to be higher in things we generally want more of: fiber, magnesium, folic acid, vitamin C and E, and beneficial plant compounds called phytochemicals. They also tend to be lower in things we're often told to limit: calories, saturated fat, and cholesterol. So from that perspective, they align well with many recommendations.
Okay, higher in the good stuff, lower in the less good stuff.
Yeah.
But what about potential deficiencies? That's always a concern raised, isn't it?
That's a very valid and important point the research also addresses. While well-planned vegan diets are healthy, there's a crucial need to pay attention to certain nutrients. Vitamin B12 is the big one. It's almost exclusively found in animal products, so supplementation is generally essential for vegans. Others to watch include vitamin D, calcium, especially if not consuming fortified foods, zinc, certain long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, EPA-DH, and sometimes iodine and selenium, depending on soil content and food choices.
So it's definitely possible to meet guidelines, but it requires planning, like from the WHO or FAO.
Absolutely. A well-planned vegan diet emphasizing a wide variety of whole foods, grains, fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds can definitely meet the core principles of adequacy, diversity, balance, and moderation set out by major health organizations. Using fortified foods like plant milks with added calcium and vitamin D, or breakfast cereals with B12 can be really helpful too.
But there are still hurdles, right? Misconceptions or challenges, maybe for specific groups.
For sure. The research acknowledges that non-vegans might have misconceptions about, say, getting enough protein or just how difficult it is. And for the listener considering this, the key is variety and awareness. Eat a wide range of plant foods. Definitely incorporate fortified foods or supplements, especially for B12 and vitamin D. Planning becomes even more critical for certain groups, like children or during pregnancy, where nutrient needs are higher. The research highlights gaps in understanding long-term effects in kids, so careful professional guidance is really important there.
And technology might help here too. You mentioned something called NutriVision.
Yeah, another fascinating tech application. NutriVision is a system being developed that uses smart tech computer vision, machine learning, to help manage diets automatically. Imagine taking a picture of your meal, and it identifies the food, estimates portions, and gives you the nutritional breakdown. It could be a powerful tool for anyone managing dietary goals or restrictions, including vegans ensuring they hit their nutrient targets.
Wow, that could be incredibly helpful. Okay, so we've covered a lot today, from the surprising secrets of corn to our genes and gut microbes, how our stress affects our pets, and the details of vegan diets.
It really shows how interconnected everything is, doesn't it? Our food choices, our internal biology, our environment, even our emotional bonds with animals. I think connecting these dots, being well-informed, really empowers us to make better choices in, well, pretty much every part of life.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you picked up some surprising facts and maybe some practical tips along the way. If you enjoyed this exploration, please do like, share, and subscribe to Consumers 360 for more insights like these. And as you go about your day, here's something to think about. How might just one small shift in understanding maybe the corn, or your gut, or even your pet spark a bigger positive change in your overall well-being?